And welcome to our Fields and Features segment, our more in-depth space weather analysis video. This is Space Weather Video 2 of 3 on the day. Become a paid member at smashomash.com/smashteam to see all the content immediately. So looking at magnetohydrodynamic pressure here at this moment, we are seeing a period of geomagnetic unrest. I think it might actually turn into a geomagnetic storm condition here, as we are expecting an additional uptick in the solar wind velocity. So if we see any sort of intensification of the magnetic field, or an increased negative BZ component, we can expect to see geomagnetic storm conditions. We're quite close to it in my opinion right now. We'll get to it. I'm going to let this play through in its entirety. It should be 4 hours of magnetohydrodynamic pressure from Earth's magnetic moment from space. It's sort of like what a proton experiences when it shows up as a solar wind component at the Earth's bow shock, right about there. Next, looking at ground magnetic perturbations, and we see significant ones here. We can expect to see lots of imagery of aurora. Make sure you follow us on Twitter, twitter.com/smashomash. If you don't have an account, just create one, as it is a great means by which to exchange information, regardless of who's been banned. We insist on big tech fixing their pathetic software, and I doubt we'll get banned. Some major magnetic pulses there coming out of the center of Africa. Check it out. We're going to let that play through a second time. Huge magnetic pulses coming out of the African rift zone right here toward the end of the video. Not the most common thing to see. Those really dark areas there, those are the most likely places on the planet to see aurorae, power system induction, railroad and pipeline electrical induction. Some fantastic imagery there from the University of Michigan. Ground magnetic perturbations, Earth's magnetic moment from the ground. Also, we see some huge shifts here in the GOES magnetometer in the past couple of hours. Some big divergences happening there between the GOES 16 and GOES 17 measurements. Also, we see the arrival of the North Pole current sheet imminent. We can expect Earth to be in a North Pole current sheet by tomorrow, as we forecasted yesterday on our Fields and Features segment video. Keep in mind this data is an hour and a half old approximately from when we recorded the video, and the magnetic environment can suddenly change with essentially no warning. Here's a line of sight view. You'll see this green area here on your left appearing. Toward the end there, that's the North Pole current sheet making its way toward Earth rather rapidly. And here's the line of sight coronal hole plot. We're seeing additional trans-equatorial South Pole coronal holes here. So you can see these coronal holes right over here. They're all red. As we see the North Pole still remaining largely stable, South Pole looks like it's beginning its migration to the other side of the sun more quickly. Yeah, during the solar polar field reversal cycles, aka the sunspot cycles, these fields will reverse. We see enduring coronal holes at the poles around solar minimum. And here's a view of those coronal holes from the SDO, 193 angstroms. Splentacular imagery there, as always, from the Solar Dynamics Observatory. It's quite a good telescope. We'll move on from sunspots to here. We'll move on to sunspots from here. How about that? Sunspot 2961 recently got a name. It's a beta class sunspot already. Don't be surprised to see major flares out of one of these regions. Whether it's this one, I'm going to just call that one region, even though it's two named sunspots, or out of 2960. Also, this area right here is going to be named 2962. It is certainly a sunspot at the moment. So likelihood of large flares still quite high here. Looks like it's going to be over 50%, more like 60%. So here's some visual analysis, 1700 angstroms from the SDO. And sunspot 2960 is quite large, as you can see. 2957, quite big as well, and less sunspot activity in the northern hemisphere. So here's a close-up of the north. May see some ombre form here right at the end of this. This most likely will get a name today, sunspot 2962. Here's the southern hemisphere. And we did see some filamentary reorganization going on. We've been putting out 3 daily space weather videos per day. thanks to a gold and silver level Smash Team members. You get access to them immediately as soon as we have them uploaded. Next, the GOES X-ray flux over the past 3 days, and I'm going to bring up the 7-day chart here briefly, just to show you this slight uptick. Over the past 7 days, we usually only show a 3-day chart, and at the moment, sunspots are underperforming. So again, don't be surprised to see significant flares. No relativistic particles at the moment, just a background level of proton flux. And looking at the real-time solar wind, we can see why we have geomagnetic unrest. It's because the fields are quite strong here. They've actually weakened a little bit, but we are expecting to see a dip in the solar wind density and an increase in the solar wind speed here, because we're expecting another signal from a coronal hole. So this is looking pretty weak. I expect to see the solar wind density drop and the solar wind speed rise. At the current moment, we're at about 10 protons per cubic centimeter for the solar wind density, solar wind speed just over 500 kilometers per second. And the major thing that's been causing the geomagnetic unrest is this right here. So the total field made it up to 12 with a BZ of negative 12, South Pole oriented magnetism, southern magnetism, I'll just say. And if that continues, and it doesn't look like it is going to continue, if it does continue, we may see this progress into geomagnetic storm conditions. So we may see auroras kicking up. Twitter.com/smashamash, we share lots of auroral imagery and other posts from lots of other space weather type content creators. Most of them not making YouTube videos, but nonetheless. And here we should see this kick up in the last little bit. Here we see this increase in the aurora. Just move that forward a little bit. So a major increase in the likelihood of aurora there. I don't think it's going to make it to Tasmania. Anyway, there's the KP index. KP of 4. Geomagnetic unrest conditions have been achieved. And if we do see a solar wind uptick or major changes in the fields, we may see geomagnetic storm conditions. Next, the solar system forecast. Here's where heavenly bodies are now. We'll advance at 1 week. Here's where things will be in a week. We'll have a crescent. We'll have a gibbous waxing moon. And we do have a planetary pileup happening in the sky. Mars and Venus, Mercury and Saturn, all rising ahead of the sun. Jupiter and the sun almost aligned here. That's my all-sky chart from in-the-sky.org. The chart showing me what's going on above my head in Lehigh Valley, Pennsylvania. Last but not least, we'll look at some coronagraphs to see fairly smooth sailing. Here's Mercury showing up in the coronagraph. That's the LASCO C2 located here at Lagrangian point 1. Earth would be behind you from this perspective. And from stereo A's perspective, Earth would be off to your right. The stereo A core 2 coronagraph located here at Lagrangian point 5. So the coast is clear at the moment. Thanks for tuning in to our in-depth analysis, our Fields and Features segment. Thanks to the Smash team at smashamash.com/smashteam. And may that solar wind be at your back.